Today on Up Front, a rare look behind the bench of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. My extended interview with retired Justice David Prosser. Next, Prosser on whether Act 10 changed the court, the money pouring into court elections, and whether merit selection is an answer.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. We're doing something a little different on our program today. I have an extended interview with retired Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice David Prosser. Prosser retired July 31st after 18 years on the court. Other than when they're running for election, it's rare for sitting justices to give interviews. Today, I'm talking to Prosser about his decision to retire, his career as a justice and a prominent state lawmaker, and the incident with another justice he worries will follow him forever. But first, some background. Act 10 was Governor Walker's controversial 2011 law stripping most public employee unions of their ability to collectively bargain on most issues. It led to huge protests at the state capitol, recall elections for a number of state lawmakers and Walker, and divided the state. The law went all the way to the Supreme Court, with Prosser voting in the majority to uphold it. So let's talk about the future. You're still a young guy by my standards. So what are you going to do with this next phase of your life?
Well, I have a lot of things I'd like to do. There's a lot of writing. I have a law review article that I'm working on right now that will discuss some proposed changes in the Wisconsin Constitution, the judicial article of the Wisconsin Constitution. I don't want to just drop off the end of the earth.
You're going to stay busy.
You bet.
So tell us more about your decision to retire, because you could have served through the completion of your term, which I believe is 2021, but you chose to retire now. Why?
Well, there are a number of factors. For one thing, I saw a colleague die the last term. And, we are mortal, and there's a lot of things that I want to accomplish. And that writing is part of it. The caseload on the Supreme Court is significantly down. And there are a number of factors. But for example, I wrote 6 majority opinions the last term, which compares to 14 at one high point. And then there was another opinion that was essential to be part of the majority. And then there was an opinion where I wrote 25 pages of a 100-page opinion where 4 people wrote the opinion. So the workload is down. I'm not sure I'm needed as much as I used to be.
That's an interesting observation. Why do you think the workload is down?
Well, there are a number of things. A lot of cases, people are in court, but they don't have attorneys. So there are a lot of pro se things, or a lot of things that are simply settled. Then you have alternative dispute resolution with mediation and arbitration. And that's taking a lot of the good civil cases away. It's very expensive to go through the entire appellate process. So sometimes you'll see, really high-profile political cases going all the way. And people seem to have the money to do that. But the court's normal business of civil disputes, that's very expensive, and you have to have a really good reason to go. The criminal cases, there's lots of criminal cases, but there aren't that many good issues.
Was it completely your decision, because you always hear the scuttlebutt in Madison and places like that, maybe Justice Prosser was encouraged to retire so that someone younger, perhaps even more conservative, could move on to the court? What do you say when you hear stuff like that?
No, that's simply not the case. I made the decision, and I was happy to move on to a new phase of my life.
Give us your sense of what you're proudest of in your 18 years on the court.
I'm sometimes asked what my favorite case was. I'm always at a loss of words for that, because the diversity of cases is so great. What am I most proud of? There are a couple of things. I received a compliment once. It was at the dedication of the Marquette Law School. Attorney from a local firm here in Milwaukee said to me, "We never know quite how you're going to vote. You're the only one who seems to be unpredictable." I thought that was a terrific compliment.
Why is it a great compliment? You probably run into some people who say, what we want is predictability on the court. We want a judicial philosophy we know will be used in every case. What about that?
Well, I often have a judicial philosophy that is pretty consistent. But people say, Prosser is part of a conservative bloc. What does that mean? Conservatives don't always think alike. Conservatives are expected to follow the law. Conservatives are expected to be sensitive to the facts of the case. And that's what I tried to do. I didn't go on the court with an agenda of things that I promised to do, except to work hard and do the best job I could.
Any regrets when you look back at the 18 years, things you would have done differently?
Well, sure. There was a very controversial incident.
With Judge Ann Walsh Bradley.
Yes, as you're well aware. I didn't want to be confrontational. I did not want to accuse my colleague and go into this over and over and over again. I thought the court was being tremendously damaged. I probably should have been more assertive in defending myself and explaining the facts.
Do you think
but that's retrospect.
Do you think you were unfairly portrayed in that incident?
Oh, unquestionably.
Unquestionably?
Yes.
In what way? Do you just think that you were seen as the aggressor or seen as being responsible for dysfunction on the court? How so?
The situation, basically, I'm standing in one spot. I'm talking to one justice here and another justice charged at me. Okay. Now, how can I be described as the aggressor when I never moved from that spot, but I did put up my hands to defend myself?
Do you worry at all, or does it concern you at all, that some people, some who may not share a similar judicial philosophy, think of you as a thoughtful, reasoned individual who wrote solid decisions, but it gets overshadowed by these other couple of incidents with Judge Abrahamson and Judge Bradley? Do you worry that your accomplishments get overshadowed by the conflicts as you look back at your career?
Oh, I'm very concerned about that. I don't think there's any question that has happened. If you look up the name of David Prosser on the internet, it is pretty hard to find a positive news story. Now, in other words, certain incidents have been built into monumental indiscretions. If I wrote a marvelous opinion, no one would ever know it because that's simply not reported.
Did some of this happen during the Act 10 debate, which was a very
Yes.
intense time in the state capitol? Question for you. Did Act 10 dramatically change the court and the way the court operated? Did it change it at all?
I don't think it did change the court that much. It certainly tended to exacerbate some differences on the court and some hard feelings on the court. But frankly, there were sharp differences on the court long before Act 10.
Coming up next, Prosser on justices running for Supreme Court and the role special interests play in court elections. I'll ask him, would merit selection of justices fix this?
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.